Hi, Sanjeev. How are you? Good
I'm
afternoon.
very well, Gaurav. Thank you very much.
Well, wishing you the best in 2026. Happy New Year and Happy New Year to all our audience as well.
Happy New Year to all of you.
Thank you so much. So, Sanjeev, before we begin, why don't we take a couple of minutes and know a little about yourself and the topic that we have, looking into an entrepreneurial mind and the journey, right? And I think you've had an inspiring journey yourself, which I'm pretty sure the audience would love to know. So, over to you.
Well, you know, I I've been in IT industry for more than 45 years after graduating from IIT Kanpur and IIM Calcutta. Worked in companies like Wipro, IBM, and actually this interesting journey started in the year 2001 when I was wanting to do a startup, software startup, and I was exploring how one could do it. What are the ways? I was talking to some VCs whether they would be interested in doing this. One of the VCs I met, he gave me a very interesting perspective. He said that this was 2001, just after the dot com crash, and a lot of software companies were doing very badly. So he said that rather than starting a greenfield operation, starting from zero, he said it takes a lot of effort to start from zero. So he suggested, why don't you do a management buyout? Take an existing company which is not doing well, invest some money, raise funds, and take it from there. So taking it from 1 to 10 might be far easier than going from 0 to 1, which I thought was a good idea. And that is how my journey started on this, on my entrepreneurship plans. So when he talked about this, I started evaluating a few companies. He suggested one or two companies. I looked at them, but as we were looking at what to do, one thought came that we should do something in telecom, because telecom was quite a emerging organization, emerging space. Then one day this thought came to me, why don't I explore Bharti Telesoft? It was part of Airtel Group. I was associated with Bharti in another company, Bharti BT. And then I spoke to Sunil Bharti Mittal and I asked him whether he would be interested if I do a management buyout of this company, Bharti Telesoft. I knew that the company was not doing well. I didn't know much more about that company, but he said that it's a very good idea because this company has already lost a fair amount of money, is going through very different difficult phase. He was trying to sell the company, not getting a buyer. So he said, I am thinking of closing down the company, but if you want, come, you take it from here, invest money, raise funds and do all that. He said, we'll help you, but we'll not put in any more money in this organization. So that is how my journey with Bharti Telesoft as a management buyout started.
That's awesome. So I wanna pull a couple of strings here, right? The first thing is whenever we as entrepreneurs look to get into a startup or a business, usually we are always thinking 0 to 1, right? So I think it's a fantastic different way of thinking that yes, businesses can be done not always 0 to 1, but 1 to 10. And it's a different journey. And we'll get into a little more details of that with you. And then second, how are we even looking at the opportunities out there? Sometimes I wouldn't call it just a sick unit, but sometimes businesses which are not so doing well, the opportunity can be there rather than picking something or going after something where the traction is already there and you are giving higher valuation for that business, right? So let us talk about these two things because I think these things are important. So let's get into a little more detail that when you were looking at companies from 1 to 10 versus just starting off to 0 to 1, what were the some of the pointers that you had in mind before you could actually pin down that this is the business I'm going to go for? Like, and if someone today in today's environment 2025, fast forward 25 years, wants to replicate that framework, how should they be thinking about it?
Yeah, I think that's a very good point which you have raised, Rav. And I would say, one of the reasons was that I was already 45 years old when I got into this journey,
I would
right?
say
And
45 years young. I'm 43 years old, and I would say
yeah,
43
but
years young. Great. Absolutely.
right.
Go
So I
on.
was 45 and, I felt that, starting from scratch, when you really are not sure what to get into, when you have
Hmm.
just an idea, you want to get into something and it's all a clean slate. You have no idea what you are trying, except that, yes, I want to do something in software. I want to do something which can scale up. So it was when it's a clean slate, then you all kinds of options are open. But I realize that if there is already a company that I am, which is going on, which is already at one, then you know, okay, this is the space this is the space they are in, and how to build from there. So I felt that that might be an easier way, because it gives you at least some base. You have some people, you already have some operations going on, rather than starting from scratch. So that was one of the reasons why I looked at that management buyout option. When I was talking to this VC, he also said that, look, if and that one of the discussions comes is that, look, you'll not have all the equity because there is already some existing organization, etc. But he said that, look, even if you start from scratch, you take fair amount of funding, you'll have a team of people, you'll never have a majority equity. So even if you have a significant minority, it is good enough to take this business forward. And when there is an, already something which is going on, you can build on that. It's much easier to build from wherever you are rather than starting from absolutely zero. So these were the points in my mind, and I thought that it would be a much better idea to do it this way. You also asked that how should people look at these kind of opportunities? Should they look at it? I think it is not very easy to do this. Finding an organization which is not doing well, where the promoters are really feeling that, look, let me get in somebody else to run the show, and let's build it from there. So these kind of opportunities do not come very often. But for example, I'll give you in the same situation. At that time, I looked at another company which was in the banking space, and they were, this was told to me that, why don't you look at this organization? And I was wondering about this organization. I said, let me find out, let me meet the promoters and find out why they are not interested and why they want somebody else to take over. And I met the promoters. They were not in India, they were outside. I went and met them, and they were all reasonably old people. Said, we have done a lot of this, we have built it up here, but we would ideally like somebody else to take over. We don't want to be involved in those operations of this organization. But when I looked at, so from that perspective, it looked fine. I think it is, identifying the right kind of an organization is very critical. It's not always easy to find an organization where the promoter wants to exit and wants to bring in somebody else. But very often it happens that somebody has already built up the company, is wanting to sort of move out, maybe because of age or so many other factors, and says, okay, I'll bring in somebody else. But I think the difference between getting an employee and working, and or bringing in a person who's actually doing an entrepreneurship is, as Sunil Bharti Mittal said, you should have skin in the game. You must invest in the business, and then you start saying, okay, as I build it, I'll have these equity, etc. So I think this option is possible, but identifying the right kind of an organization is very, very critical.
Lovely. Now, tell me something, Sanjeev, with your experience and the game you played, right? How is it that what is the framework that people should be thinking about? Let's say I want to start a new business, and I'm thinking about whether the 0 to 1 or 1 to 10 journey. What is the framework? What are the three most important things that I should be looking at while choosing like a 1 to 10 kind of a company?
So, first, the most important thing is who the existing promoters are and what their motivation level is in wanting to bring in somebody else to take over the management and run the business from there. So, in a way, they have to really say, okay, let this guy run the business. We'll just have some equity in the business, but we are not involved in the operations or the management of that business. So that, I think, is very critical, who the promoters are at that point of time and what their motivation level is. Secondly, you must see value which can be built in. Because if the business is not, it may be doing well or not, but if you really feel that you can't build it on there, if the foundations themselves are not very strong, then you'll find it very difficult to build it from there. So I would say these are and you need to have a vision for that organization. You must feel that, look, this can become into this and this organization, which will create significant value, not just for the existing promoters, because they will still have equity. They may not have control, but they will have equity in the business, and you will, you also are trying to create value for yourself. So if you think that you can scale up, you have a vision for that business, I think it can be a good option for considering a 1 to 10 kind of a journey.
Sure. Now, I've been an entrepreneur myself for 24 years, and I've gone through that journey of 0 to 1 and then 1 to 10 a few many times, right? One thing that I've seen is that when you don't have baggage, and don't take my words literally, but when you don't have someone who has built the business and there is a culture in the organization, you can build the culture yourself. You can define the culture as you go from that journey of 0 to 1, and that it's easier to kind of replicate that culture as you hire more and get more people in the company. But when you take over a company, the culture is already there, right? I mean, the organization was working before, whether doing good, not so good, that's another thing. But then you will have to do a lot of unlearning and then kind of build that again. So, how hard that journey is with getting people motivated, getting that culture in, what is your take on that?
I think that's another very good point, because if the organization has been there for a very long time, say it has already been in existence for 15, 20 years, then there is already a lot of baggage which is there. In this particular case, when I joined Bharti Telesoft, it was only a 2 year old organization.
Hmm.
So it was early days for the company. Culture had not got established. And I think from my personal perspective, and I would also say that Bharti Group had a very good name in the market, right? That they are doing things in the right manner. So you knew that, the base which would have been there would be fairly good on which you can build.
Yeah.
So, I felt that I could take it over from there and build on that organization.
So I think then two important points that come out is also that, try, if you want to get into that 1 to 10 journey, try to get into a company which is maybe not a legacy company of more than 10, 15 years, right? I mean, the earlier you can get into that zone, the better it is. And then the second, if you can somehow see the promoters, know the promoters, and know that what they have built in the earlier years or earlier legacy of theirs, then you know that the kind of culture that they will build and you will be getting into will be positive. So I think those two are good things. Great.
Also, I would say, before you get into that, you can have a meeting with the management team, the key management team, and understand what kind of people there are, what kind of management depth exists. Like in one or two other companies, not just Bharti Telesoft, but another company which I was evaluating, I went and met. I spent 2 3 meetings with their key management team to understand what they're doing, and what the people are, because ultimately you're taking those people also with you. You're not starting from zero. You are looking at the existing team and trying to build on that.
No, great. Yeah, and when something like this happens, do you end up getting the old team to work with you, or you replace the team completely? Like, how did it work for you?
In my case, we didn't replace the team at all. We continued working with the team, and uh, and I realized that it is very important that they should also have a stake in the organization,
Hmm.
because I am coming in as an outsider. The team has been there for some time, maybe a couple of years, and I told them about my vision of what we are trying to do, how we are trying to do this management buyout. And I asked all this, the 8 or 9 people who were there in the management team, I asked them, why don't they also invest some money and take some stake, right? I said, whatever money works for you, 50,000 rupees, 1 lakh, 2 lakhs. And all of them agreed to invest money. Said, yes, we want to build this. We are willing to put some money into the business, have some skin in the game, and let's try to build from here what we can do it. So, that gave a fair amount of confidence, and the entire team was on the same page because they realized that where we are and said, yes, this is what we want to do. Also, I would say that the timing was very interesting. This was
Hmm.
2001. Software companies are going through a difficult phase. So, people all realize that here we have an opportunity. Let's try to build from there. So, I think that worked for me.
Yeah, sometimes, when it's a challenging time or disruption happening, the opportunity is in front of you and you just have to grab it. Um,
Sure.
so absolutely. So now let me ask you, and I think this was a very interesting point that we discussed in your journey, that you did not go west. So you did not go to developed markets like the US and the UK of the world, and you went to Africa. So why did you choose that? And do you think that that was the right thing to do at that point of time? And what do you suggest to entrepreneurs today building up and relying heavily on the Western markets? What is your suggestion for them?
That's a very interesting, discussion, because when I joined this organization, it was purely a software services company, doing telecom software primarily in the Western markets of USA and UK. And we had some people based there, some salespeople, some bench strength also was there. So we had about 8 or 10 people sitting in USA and UK, and the company was losing a lot of money. And I realized that, look, this was just after the dot com crash, when the software services, the had changed 180 degrees from in 99, when the demand was unlimited and supply was a constraint. Suddenly in 2001, uh, the demand came down very significantly and supply was very much there. So we realized that we will not be able to really build a typical software services business going after the USA, UK markets. And I said, we have to cut our costs. We have to become break even very soon. I can't keep on losing money. So we brought back all the people, and we said, let's cut down a lot of expenses, because having people sitting in USA is a very expensive proposition. So we brought everybody back to India, and then we started saying that, okay, where can we start doing some business? We started looking at the domestic market. In India there was some need. Telecom, there was a lot of need. We spoke to Airtel and they said, yes, we have a lot of need for software services. So we started doing that. But you asked me about how did we go into the emerging markets? How did we go into Africa? And that was, at that time, no software company, and I'm talking of 2001, had gone into the Africa market. It was an unknown entity entirely. We had a sales head. He came and said, look, I want to travel to Nigeria because we have an operator there. We know the telecom operator there. And he says that this software, the billing software, you guys can deploy it. So we want to go there and try it out. I asked him, do you think it's right to go to Africa? you know, Selling in Africa in case they don't pay us money, what, how are we going to ensure that we get our money back, right? We have no ability to sort of enforce any contract. But he was very much insisting that we make a trip to Africa, and going to Africa was a very expensive proposition. It was almost 2 lakhs, going there in those days. And but anyway, I said, okay, I'll grant you one travel. You go there and let me see what happens. Two of our guys went to Nigeria for 3 days, gave them a demo, closed the order, and we got $65,000 as advance from that customer. Now that suddenly, when we got $65,000 as advance, that changed my entire thinking. One
Right.
is, of course, we were getting a lot of cash flow upfront. But more than that, I realized that because we are selling a product, right? The difference is between services and the product. When you sell services, you have done the services, and then you have, if the customer has not paid you, the cost has already been incurred. But in the product, because he's given you advance, he gave us 50% advance, and we realized that our cost of implementation is not going to be very high. It'll cost us maybe $15,000-$20,000 to implement it. And we realized that after we have implemented the software, now the customer is very keen that it works. He needs support from us. And if he doesn't pay us and we stop supporting, whatever advance he has paid has gone down the drain. So we realize that as we sell products in this market, we have a strong hold over the customer because he wants the product to work. He has paid you some advance, so he doesn't want that money to go down the drain. And therefore, I I felt that that is a very good model. It was very early days when people were selling products, not services, selling products in the in the emerging markets. And there was one more thing which we realized, which was a very significant change. We were building products in the Indian market for Indian telcos. And when we used to still try to sell in the Western markets of USA and Europe, and there we were not getting any traction. Nobody would give any importance to this small Indian company which was trying to sell some products. But in Africa and these Middle East and these emerging markets, India was a good name. People would look at us with respect and say, "Oh, you are part of Bharti Group. Yes, we'll be very happy to talk to you." And we would get a fair amount of, we would be able to open doors, go and talk to customers. And they said, if you're making it work in India, I'm sure you can make it work for these Africa and emerging markets also. So we started selling products. We were getting fair amount of advance for buying a product. People are willing to give advance, and our risks were low, and our ability to collect money was also high, because once the customer has bought the product, he wants to make sure that it is supported and it works for the next 4 years, 5 years, or whatever. And therefore, he had to continue dealing with us on a long term basis. So that model worked very well. It gave us good cash flows, it gave us good business, and we would do business from all kinds of countries in Africa, Middle East, Asia, Central Asia, Russia. Take a country like Guam. We went to this island in Guam, and Guam is a US territory. There were three telcos there, and we did almost $1 million of business in Guam.
Wow.
We could never have thought,
Fantastic.
right, that we could do that kind of business, but it became a very good business model for us, because we had by that time started moving away from just pure software services to what you call value added services. In those days, the value added services didn't exist. But, the telcos were making revenue only from a voice call and an SMS. And we were helping them make revenues from all other services like messaging and roaming and in entertainment and callback tunes and mobile entertainment and all these, mobile money, etc. All these services which are coming up. And these are all telcos said, if we can make money out of this, yes, we'll be very happy if you help us make money from these other value added services. And that was the early days of value added services in the telco market, which we were early days in creating that sector.
Sanjeev, I must compliment you and appreciate that you are a true entrepreneur, because that's what entrepreneurship is, to go and find out where the opportunity is that nobody has seen or ignored, right? Just because they feel that that's not the easiest to go into. So I think there is so much learning from what you have just described. So let's
And in that context, I would also say take risks which you can manage. Right?
hmm.
I had no idea whether we could make it work in Africa, but I said, okay, I am willing to spend so much of money, try it out, and it worked very well. And then we said, okay, if it is working well, let's build on this.
Yeah, double down, right? Double down.
Yes.
And I think so sharp, because you already, before you did take that risk, you already disconnected the risk that you were taking in the US. And that kind of cut short your burn so much, right? So you had that peace of mind that I can take incremental risk now because my bigger risk is gone. So I think so important. So do you suggest that people should be looking at their burn very carefully and try to be profitable and not grow at the cost of burning money mindlessly? What is your take on that?
Well, again, it varies from organization to organization. I think there are, one is I talked about the products and the services business. Other is about B2B versus B2C, right? We were primarily a B2B company. And in a B2B company, you are, as long as you have got a good product and you have a good sales team which can go and sell, you don't need to burn too much of money. Every contract has to be viable in its own sense. In B2C, because you're creating a very large market, with the consumers, so you have to make sure that the consumers come to you. So you have to burn a huge amount of money. So I fully agree that a B2C company has to invest very heavily. They have to burn, call it marketing expense, call it brand building. But B2B is very different. In B2B, You have to have good products. You have to be able to look at your value proposition. And as long as you're able to sell to enough customers to generate enough revenue to meet your expenses, I think you start becoming profitable very soon. In most of the B2B companies, you can become profitable pretty early in the game, and you don't need that much of money
No,
to burn.
lovely. I like your differentiation on what game you're playing and what are the rules of those games as well, right? So great. So Sanjeevji, from the early 2001 to where we are in 2026, the game has changed. The AI disruption has come in. The way B2B go to market, initiatives were different. So, and I know you're a active investor today and invested in many companies and also helping them to scale. What are the major two or three differences that you see in the game that plays today versus how it was played in 2001? And for B2B specific companies, what are the two three things that they should be very careful in, let's say, years to come, next 12 to 18 months or 24 months to come?
So, I would say that one thing which has changed significantly in the last 25 years is that the Indian market has become a very large market by itself, right? And a lot of players, both B2C and B2B companies, are today able to address significant and able to generate fair amount of revenue by addressing only the Indian market. 25 years ago, that was not the case. The Indian market was very small. People not willing to buy products or services. There was not that much of investment going on in products or services. In our case, it was one more challenge because we were part of Bharti Group. So the lot of the other telcos, although we were doing business with them, they would still look at us with suspicion because they felt you're part of a competitor of theirs. So, we were doing business, but yet it had challenges. And therefore, very early we realized that we will have to go into the global markets, the international market, and cannot just sustain our business only by the domestic market. And we found, as I told you, very good traction in the emerging markets. Today, and as I told you that I'm also an angel investor and mentor to startups. All the companies that I have invested in are B2B companies. They're not B2C companies for two reasons. One, because I understand the B2B business far better. Secondly, the need for money is much lower, right? In a B2C companies, unless you have millions of dollars coming in from deep pocketed VCs, you'll not be able to scale up to the level that you have to be to compete with the other players. But in B2B, as long as you have got a reasonably good product, you know what your value proposition is, you know how to approach your customers, and you're able to make sale to them, you can become viable pretty soon. And therefore, the need for money is not all that high. So, for example, I have invested in about 10 or 12 companies, and I would say majority of them have become viable, profitable pretty soon.
Very well.
you know so that I think is one thing, and majority of them are addressing only the domestic market because Indian market has become pretty large. Although for a B2B company it is also important that they go after the global markets. If you've got a good product which can sell in well in India, why not in Asia, why not in Europe, why not in some other markets? But that journey is not very easy. So the companies that I have involved with, several of them are trying to go global with varying levels of success. But we were able to do it. You know, uh, I think the timings was right, and we were able. It was a very niche segment. We were only going after telcos, and we were able to address them relatively easily by going to the global markets.
Absolutely. No, this is great. Thank you for this conversation, Sanjeev ji. I think our audience would get a lot of perspective because, usually we only hear starts from scratch, 0 to 1, go to the global, the Western markets. So it's very different to hear this perspective and your journey. Very inspiring.
One more
Anything
thing
that,
I would, yeah,
yeah,
one more thing I would like to add. When I got into this management buyout, initially when I was trying to raise VC funding, we were not successful because, we didn't have a story strong enough. And then I said, okay, if you're not able to raise, we'll do it on our own. I made the company cash flow break even, and we started building on that itself. But after we started we created this value added services space. Then after about 2 3 years, the VC started approaching us and they said, "Hey, you are doing a great work. This value added services can become a very significant market, and we would like to be part of your journey." By that time, we were already doing very well. We had money in the bank, and we said we don't need the money now. But they were said, no, no, we have to take a stake in your organization. And I spoke to Sunil Bharti Mittal that, do you think that we should take some money? They are very keen to offer us money. He had a very interesting observation. He said, yes, I know you don't need the money, but I think you should take it. Because he said, on your own steam, you'll grow at a particular level. But if you have money in the bank, you can go and acquire some company and therefore scale up much faster. And that would be one way to build your business much faster. So that is why we said, okay, we'll take the money. We spoke to two or three consortiums who were keen to invest money, and we signed some term sheet. Then they said we want to put in some more. So finally, when we didn't need the money, we raised $13.5 million. So that was a very interesting I would say a perspective. When we needed the money, nobody was willing to give it, but when we didn't need it, they were very keen to be part of our journey.
But that's life, no?
That's right.
And yeah, and so when you did take the money, did it help you in organic growth and really, do some interesting buyouts and grow exponentially?
Well, that's a very another interesting topic, because we had the money, we were generating, profits every year, so we didn't need the money. It was only meant for inorganic growth. And I felt that we should look at a company which is based outside India, that, it can help us in getting into the global markets much more easily. So I evaluated various companies, made a lot of trips, but somehow none of the deals were coming through. And every board meeting, I would get pressure from the VCs, from my directors, that look, your money is lying in the bank, you're just earning interest. Why don't you do something about it? So we appointed an investment banker, and he told us to, finally came across a company which was again an Indian company, and said, why don't you acquire this? The name of the company, it was a Bangalore-based company called Jatayu. And we were primarily addressing the needs of the telcos from their infrastructure perspective. This company was more focused on the handset business, and they were doing a lot of work in the handset business. And finally, we acquired that company. So that was where our inorganic growth story happened.
And did it help in that growth of yours?
In my mind, there were two challenges which we faced with this acquisition. One, the acquisition happened in 2007 when the valuations are very high. And any company which has acquired anything in 2007, because in 2008, every valuation was half or less. So if we had waited for 6 months, we could have acquired the company at half or lesser price.
Yeah.
But 2007, the valuations were very high. The second thing which happened was that this company was primarily addressing needs of the handsets. And in 2008, Apple introduced the iPhone, and that changed the entire, handset space. So our entire work which we are doing with telcos, there were four or five operating systems before Apple came in. There was Symbian operating system, there was Windows CE, there were various things which are going on, and that was the space they were in. But the market changed very dramatically after iPhone was launched, and that again created its own challenges for the business that we had acquired. So I would not say that it was a great acquisition, but it has its own pluses and minuses.
Sure. Now, interestingly, maybe the last question I want to ask is, let's say if you did not have the money in bank, and if you did not have the pressure to go invest for inorganic growth, you think you would have been in a better position? Because sometimes when you do have money in bank sitting idle, you end up taking decisions which may or may not have been taken if that wasn't there. What is your take on that?
Well, in hindsight, it is, always you have 2020 vision. So, it's not, I would not say that it's always a right thing to have money in the bank or not money in the bank. But in our case, it didn't work out very great because of the issues which I mentioned. But if you have done uh, if you have money in the bank and you are able to acquire a company for the right reasons, I think it can work. For
Understood.
example, if you look at Airtel, their entire business has been built by acquiring various circles,
Sure.
right? Airtel started from a few circles, and they kept on acquiring, built up a base in India, then built up a base in Africa, again by acquisitions. They didn't do it organically starting from scratch.
Sure. Sure.
So in their business, yes, it has worked very well. But in a telecom product software kind of a business, acquisitions have their very key challenge that when you acquire a company and if the key management team leaves, a lot of value goes down,
Hmm.
right? In a telco case, you are acquiring your networks, you're acquiring the spectrum, you're acquiring the customers, which will remain. But in a software product or services company, it's the management team which is very critical. And you
Sure.
have to make sure that they remain and remain as motivated as they were in the past.
Yeah.
If you're able to do that, it can work well for you.
Yeah, we need to have another podcast session for acquisition. It's so deep, and I'm right. There are so many aspects to for one needs to understand and kind of be sure about before they make that decision. But Sanjeevji, thank you so much for your time today. This was fantastic. One of the better ones that I've recorded, and would love to get you back, and maybe we'll do a podcast solely on the acquisition side of the business. Anything else that I may have missed and you would want to share, or we're good for now?
No, I think I've covered most of the things which were coming to my mind. So, but I must say it was great talking to you, Gaurav, and you know, reliving whatever happened 20, 25 years ago has been a very interesting journey for me. And
Thank you
it
so
worked out
much.
very well for everybody, all the stakeholders. You know, Sunil Bharti Mittal was very happy with this. Financially, it worked out very well for all the stakeholders.
Lovely. Now we know that with your depth of knowledge in the B2B software business, at least, and you being an investor as well, many people would like to contact you. What is the best way that they can get in touch with you?
Well, the best way is they can send me a WhatsApp. I can give my number and they can contact me.
Well, if you're okay to share the number on a public platform, please go ahead.
Yeah, my number is 98990 59442.
Perfect. Thank you, Sanjeev. Take care now. See you soon.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you,
Yeah.
Gaurav. Really
Just
enjoyed it.